At 12:45 in the afternoon, a young estate agent was supposed to meet a man outside an empty house in Fulham, London. The appointment looked completely ordinary. The client had provided a name, Mr. Kipper, but there was no confirmed telephone number, no verified home address, and no proof that Mr. Kipper was even his real name. The estate agent was 25-year-old Suzy Lamplugh. She left her office expecting to return after showing the man around the property. She never came back. Her company car was discovered abandoned later that evening. The doors were unlocked, the handbrake was not secured, Suzy's purse was still inside. But Suzy was gone. Her car keys were gone, the property keys were gone, and the mysterious Mr. Kipper had disappeared with her. Now, 40 years after that afternoon, detectives are beginning what could become the final active search for the truth. They are still attempting to trace around 30 potential witnesses. They are still examining forensic material. They are still studying thousands of aging records. And one smudged fingerprint recovered from the rearview mirror of Suzy's abandoned car remains unidentified. For 4 decades, detectives have been asking the same question. Who was Mr. Kipper? But there is now another question. Can one fingerprint, 30 remaining witnesses, and thousands of forgotten records finally reveal what happened to Suzy Lamplugh? Monday, July 28, 1986, began as a normal working day for Suzy. She worked for an estate agency called Sturgis & Sons on Fulham Road in West London. Suzy was described by those who knew her as confident, friendly, and full of life. She was building her career and regularly traveled alone to show potential clients around properties. At the time, this was normal practice. Estate agents often met strangers at empty houses without mobile telephones, instant background checks, or the modern safety systems that workers use today. Shortly before lunchtime, an appointment appeared in Suzy's work diary. It read, 12:45. Mr. Kipper, 37 Shorrolls Road, outside. Those few words would become one of the most examined diary entries in British criminal history. At approximately 12:40 in the afternoon, Suzy left the office. She took her company car and the keys to the property. She also carried a small purse containing money and credit cards. But she left her handbag at the office. That detail strongly suggested that Suzy expected to return. This did not look like someone preparing to disappear. It looked like someone leaving for a short appointment in the middle of an ordinary working day. Around 10 minutes later, Suzy was seen waiting outside the empty property on Shorrolls Road. The house had only recently been placed on the market. At around 1 o'clock, witnesses reported seeing Suzy with a smartly dressed man. They were seen near the property and then walking away from it. The man was believed to be the client recorded in Suzy's diary, Mr. Kipper. But investigators could never establish exactly who he was. No genuine buyer using that name was confirmed. No legitimate clients came forward to explain the appointment, and nobody could prove how the meeting had been arranged. Had the man telephoned the office? Had he spoken directly to Suzy? Had Suzy met him before? Or had someone created the appointment using a false identity because he knew it would place Suzy alone inside an empty property? The answers disappeared with her. Suzy was expected to return to the office after the viewing. She did not return. At first, her colleagues may not have understood the seriousness of the situation. Property appointments could run late. Traffic could cause delays. Plans could change. But as the afternoon continued, the concern grew. Suzy did not telephone. She did not contact her family. She did not arrive for her evening plans. At approximately 6:45 that evening, her manager contacted police. A search began. Later that night, Suzy's white Ford Fiesta was found abandoned on Stevenage Road in Fulham. It was not part where Suzy had supposedly met Mr. Kipper. It was discovered some distance away outside another property connected to the estate agency. The car raised more questions than it answered. The doors were unlocked. The handbrake had been left off. Suzy's purse remained inside a storage compartment, but the ignition key was missing. The keys to the Short Road property were also missing. There were no clear signs inside the car explaining what had happened. There was no message from Suzy. There was no confirmed crime scene. And there was no obvious trail showing where she had been taken. It was as though someone had carefully removed Suzy from the streets of London and then walked away without leaving a clear explanation. The location of the car created another mystery. Did Suzy drive it there herself? Was she inside the car with a man? Was she forced to move it? Or did someone else abandon it after Suzy had already been taken somewhere else? Witnesses reported different movements involving a woman resembling Suzy, a well-dressed man, and a dark vehicle. Those accounts helped investigators build a possible picture of Suzy's final movements. But eyewitness memories are never perfect. People can misjudge times. They can mistake one person for another. They can remember details differently after seeing photographs and news reports. Detectives had to determine which sightings were reliable and which were innocent events involving completely unrelated people. Meanwhile, Mr. Kipper remained unidentified. The name itself became one of the investigation's greatest puzzles. Was Kipper a real surname? Was it a nickname? Was Suzy attempting to spell a name she had only heard over the telephone? Or was it deliberately chosen because it could not easily be traced? It is also possible that Mr. Kipper was never the person's legal name at all. A false name would have allowed someone to arrange the viewing without connecting the appointment to his real identity. In 1986, there was no simple digital trail for detectives to follow. There was no mobile telephone location history. There were no text conversations stored online. There were no electronic property booking systems recording every movement. If the appointment was arranged during a brief telephone call, the identity of the caller could disappear the moment the receiver was placed down. Investigators were left with handwritten records, witness statements, physical evidence, and human memory. The police investigation became enormous. Thousands of pieces of information were collected. Members of the public contacted investigators with possible sightings, names, vehicles, and theories. Each piece of information had to be recorded, compared, and checked. The case developed such a vast paper archive that investigators continued to preserve the original card index system used during the 1980s. Every card represented a possibility, a witness, a name, a vehicle, a location, a rumor, a person who had been interviewed, or someone who may never have been properly traced. But a large archive can create its own problem. The answer may already be there. It may be written on one card among thousands. A witness statement could appear unimportant until it is connected with another statement recorded months or years later. A name could have been spelled incorrectly. A vehicle could have been recorded under the wrong registration. Two detectives could have received separate pieces of information without realizing that they described the same person. 40 years later, the investigation is no longer only about finding new evidence. It is also about understanding the old evidence in a new way. Modern computer systems can search, compare, and organize information far more efficiently than the original investigators could in 1986. Artificial intelligence can help detectives locate patterns across enormous archives. Forensic techniques can recover information from material that once appeared useless, but technology cannot create evidence that was never preserved, and it cannot force a witness to speak. That is why the remaining 30 potential witnesses are so important. Some may have already been contacted in the past, but could now remember something differently. Others may have information connected to a vehicle, a conversation, or a person's movements. One may have heard someone make a suspicious comment after Suzy disappeared. Another may possess an old photograph, diary, letter, or document that was never examined. There may also be people who stayed silent because they were frightened, loyal to someone, or uncertain that their information mattered. After 40 years, those reasons may no longer exist. Relationships have ended. Families have changed. People who once protected someone may no longer feel the same obligation. And information that appeared insignificant in 1986 could now be the final missing connection. The fingerprint found inside Suzy's car represents that possibility. 3 years before the 40th anniversary, new forensic work began on a swab taken from a smudged fingerprint recovered from the rearview mirror. Investigators hoped modern methods could reveal something that older technology had missed. But as the anniversary arrived, the print remained unidentified. That does not automatically mean it belongs to the person responsible for Suzy's disappearance. The car could have been touched by colleagues, passengers, mechanics, or other innocent people. A fingerprint has meaning only when investigators can identify the person who left it and understand why it was there. But until the print is identified, it remains an unanswered question inside the most important physical object recovered during the investigation. Someone adjusted or touched that mirror. Was it Suzy? Was it an innocent passenger? Was it the person who moved the car? Or was it Mr. Kipper? For years, the investigation has also been connected to the name John Cannon. Cannon was a convicted murderer and sexual offender who was serving a life sentence for other crimes. In 2002, the Metropolitan Police publicly identified him as the prime suspect in Suzy's disappearance. That was an extraordinary decision. However, Cannon was never charged with abducting or murdering Suzy Lamplugh. Prosecutors concluded there was not enough evidence to bring the case against him. Cannon denied responsibility. He died in prison in November 2024 without being tried in connection with Suzy's disappearance. That distinction is essential. Being named as a prime suspect is not the same as being convicted. Police suspicion does not replace evidence tested inside a courtroom. No jury ever heard a prosecution case accusing Cannon of Suzy's murder. No verdict was returned, and no confirmed evidence has revealed where Suzy was taken. Cannon's death also removed the possibility that he could ever be interviewed again. If he possessed information about Suzy, he took it with him. But the investigation cannot stop with one suspect. Detectives still have to examine every credible possibility. Mr. Kipper could have been someone already identified during the inquiry. He could have been a person questioned and eliminated too quickly. He could have used a different identity throughout his life. Or the appointment could have been connected to circumstances investigators still do not fully understand. The danger of focusing entirely on one suspect is that other evidence can be forced to fit that theory. The final review must do the opposite. It must return to the beginning. The diary, the telephone calls, the empty property, the witnesses, the vehicles, the abandoned car, the missing keys, and the unidentified fingerprint Every assumption has to be questioned. Was the appointment genuinely made by a stranger? Did Suzy write a diary entry herself? Had she met the client before? Why was the car moved? Why was her purse left behind? Why were the property keys taken? Did the person responsible intend to create the appearance that Suzy had simply disappeared? Or did something unexpected happen, forcing that person to abandon the car quickly? Even the words written in the diary deserve examination. Mr. Kipper, 37 Shorrolls Road. Outside. Why outside? Was Suzy instructed not to meet the client at the office? Did the man want to avoid being seen by her colleagues? Did he know the property was empty? Did he understand the agency's working routines? To arrange the perfect trap, the person would need only a property address, an appointment time, and the knowledge that Suzy might arrive alone. That is what makes this case so disturbing. There was no dramatic break-in, no attack witnessed by a crowd, no obvious warning. Suzy simply left work to perform a normal part of her job. Within a short period, she had vanished. Her disappearance changed how many people thought about personal safety at work. Suzy's parents, Diana and Paul Lamplugh, later established the Suzy Lamplugh Trust. The organization became dedicated to reducing stalking, harassment, and violence while improving personal safety. Their work ensured that Suzy's name became connected not only to tragedy but also to the protection of others. However, public recognition could never give the family the answer they needed most. Where is Suzy? Her parents spent years searching for that answer. They died without learning what happened to their daughter. Just these siblings have continued living with a mystery that began with a telephone call informing the family that she had not returned from work. For them, this is not simply one of Britain's most famous unsolved cases. It is the permanent absence of a sister. A birthday that could not be celebrated. A place left empty at family gatherings. And 4 decades of knowing that someone may have possessed the truth while their family waited. The 40th anniversary does not mark the end of the investigation. Police say active work will continue for another year while detectives attempt to trace the remaining witnesses and review the available evidence. If no major breakthrough is found, the inquiry is expected to enter an inactive phase. That does not mean the case will be closed forever. New information would still be examined. A forensic match could still reopen the investigation. A witness could still come forward. But the dedicated, continuous search would no longer continue in the same way. That creates an investigative countdown. One final year of active work. Around 30 witnesses. One unidentified fingerprint. Thousands of records. And one name that may never have been real. Mr. Kipper. Somewhere inside this case, there was a real person behind that name. A man walked through Fulham on the afternoon Suzy disappeared. Witnesses believed they saw her speaking to him. Someone knew where the appointment came from. Someone moved or abandoned Suzy's car. And someone knows what happened after Suzy left the estate agency at 12:40 that afternoon. Paramount have that person is dead. Perhaps the evidence needed to prove the truth no longer exists. But perhaps the answer is still sitting inside the archive. It could be an overlooked card. A forgotten witness, a fingerprint comparison, a name that appeared in 2 different files, or one person finally deciding that 40 years of silence is enough. The Suzy Lamplugh investigation began with an ordinary appointment. A young woman, an empty house, and a client called Mr. Kipper. 40 years later, the appointment remains unexplained. The house offered no answer. The car offered only fragments. The prime suspect was never charged and is now dead. But the search is not over yet. Detectives still have one final opportunity to place every surviving piece of the investigation together. Because before this case becomes inactive, police must answer the question that has haunted Suzy's family since 1986. Was the truth lost forever that afternoon? Or has it been hiding inside the evidence all along?